Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, where we're chatting tonight with Fasana Patel, who is a transformational coach, and she's been telling me about conscious women and conscious people and conscious living. And Fasana, we primarily focused on mind, on body, and you talk about mind, body, and spirit. And I want to come back to the mind and the spirit in a second, if we could. But let's stay on body for a second. So you said you were overweight. I interviewed a performer who was like twice her weight, and then went through a process, became a vegetarian, and lost literally half of her weight. When you're talking about were you overweight, were you like 5 pounds overweight or what?
I was about 50 pounds overweight, Brian.
So you lost a fair amount.
I did.
Okay. And was there a catalyst? Was there a traumatic experience? Was there a something or other that triggered the desire to change your body?
Other than just being extremely depressed and unhappy with the negative body image and the self-image that I had, to be honest with you, I was probably in my teens. And what I remember saying to myself, and actually saying to God or the universe or whatever higher power you believe in, for me at the time, it was God. Still is God. But I said, why do I have this awesome, fantastic, super cool personality, but I feel like I'm in the wrong body? And so from that point on, it took me about 17 years, Brian, in total to really develop what I call my personal alignment, so that I can now show up and make the conscious decisions for myself that will no longer self-sabotage me, but rather generate the results in my life that I desire, which is to be healthy, strong, fit, sexy, beautiful, and absolutely just love myself from inside out.
17 years. That's a big investment of time in this self-improvement process. What did you do during that 17 years? Lots of courses, lots of reading, lots of coaching?
That's a really great question. In the 17 years that I spent focusing on why I didn't have the body that I wanted, took me that amount of time to realize, and this is where we move into the mind portion of the conversation. Took me 17 years of consistent dieting, exercising, taking pills, potions, lotions, waist trainers, you name it. I remember we lived in a basement apartment. I was raised by a single mother, so I had very humble beginnings. And I would do 1,000 crunches before bed every night so that I could take more responsibility for myself and the direction that my health and my body were going in. And nothing worked. And it drove me nuts.
Why?
And
why nothing worked? Because of diet?
Well, that's a loaded question, because that's going to get into our mind component here. It is because of diet, because like most North Americans, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I followed the Canadian Food Guide. And up until recently, I'm not sure if you've seen this, they only changed it a few years ago to incorporate more plant-based and raw foods that are actually great for our bodies. They give us the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients that we need. And what I hadn't realized was that I was intolerant to food groups like dairy and gluten. And so finally, when I decided to follow a system, systems have been magical in my life, Brian. I followed a system for 30 days. I eliminated dairy, I eliminated gluten, and refined artificial sugars. So I relied on fruits as natural sugar. And in the first month, I released 22 pounds.
Oh my gosh, really? And this was after 17 years or the beginning of the 17 years?
No, that was after the 17 years. I started when I was about, yay high. I was really young when I started on this journey.
So is this like the Atkins diet or something like that, or what?
No, it's simply a nutritional system. I actually still use it today, where I'm incorporating smoothies, so shakes, into my lifestyle. I don't use the word diet anymore. I think it's very icky. The word itself has the word die in it. So I rather do livets, right? And what I do now is I've incorporated my holistic understanding of my body and what works best for me. And I've ingrained all of the good things that work well, like my 2 shakes a day, like my system that is designed with an Ayurvedic background. And essentially the system has a lot of natural fat burning ingredients that help me feel great. My energy levels are high. I'm not packing on weight the way I used to. And I have made some pretty permanent changes, like avoiding dairy altogether. Maybe once in a while I'll have something, but avoiding dairy, avoiding gluten, and really having more water, more fruits, more vegetables, because I just noticed that I feel better when I eat cleaner.
So are you vegetarian then?
Predominantly, yes. I actually went, sorry?
You will eat meat occasionally?
I went to being vegan for a while, which was actually really challenging yet fun. I'm one of those people where if you tell me something's challenging, my inner competitive energy comes out and I'm like, huh, really? You think so, huh? And then I go out and I figure out the habits that are necessary and the preparation that I'll need to be organized with so that I can just plan my daily schedule and then make it happen. I do eat meat occasionally, but the truth is that ever since I've been developing my relationship with my body for a long while after I cut it out, every time I would maybe want to have a bite of a family member's plate, or my body would say, nope, I don't want that. No, thank you. We don't need that. It's all good. And digestively, Brian, my system as a whole, it just works better. It works more effectively. So even though I didn't understand the science behind all of this, at this point in my journey and in my life, I want to do things that help me perform at my highest potential. That's what I'm all about. When it comes to transformational coaching, we talk about conscious women and holistic wealth. Well, there is a niche of women out there around the world, just like myself, who have this divine purpose, who have this mission to serve in the world. And it's truly the love of our lives. It means the world to us. And until we set ourselves up for success in all areas, with our businesses, with our health, mentally and physically, and in our relationships, there's something that feels kind of unfulfilled within. And only the women that we're talking to in this conversation will really know that we're talking to them. No one else might understand, and that's okay. But after learning what I learned and now operating the way I do, I'm so happy and I just feel so much more fulfilled in every area of my life.
It comes across. So there's no question it comes across. So we've been primarily talking about body, and you talk about this holistic being mind, body, and spirit. Let's switch to mind. So what have you done that has in some way changed your mind or transformed your mind?
Now, this is where I answer the question you just asked me. The courses, the designations, hired coaches. I've traveled the world. I have read books. I have spent nights since I was a teenager. Instead of going out and partying and meeting boys and, having fun the way traditionally teenagers do, I was I'm a super nerd. I have my glasses around here somewhere, but, I would spend my evenings at home, sitting in front of my laptop, Googling and researching things like astrology, universal laws, the subconscious mind, and things like that. I fell in love with the concept of finding out what the secret behind the secret was when I was in my early 20s. I sat there, Brian. Have you seen The Secret?
I have. So what is the secret behind the secret?
Okay. So I sat there when I was about 22 years old. I was so excited. I'm watching this documentary / movie, The Secret, and I sat there for 2 full hours just to find out that in the end of it, the secret they talked about was that your thoughts become things. And I was like, I already know that. But how do you control the thoughts? And this, Brian, is where so many individuals, we give away our personal power by not understanding the parts of ourselves that are actually running the show of our lives.
Which is what? The subconscious?
The subconscious mind. And what I love is that so many people, right, we have this intellectual knowing of the way that our minds are, I guess you could say, separated or titled, labeled, divided, whatever. You've got your conscious mind, and then you've got the subconscious mind. But what I find so fascinating is that I'm a sociologist, so I'm trained to just watch people and study people when it comes to their behavioral patterns, both independently and in groups, which is kind of cool. And what I've realized is that a lot of people say they know a lot of stuff, and they do, and they're eloquent in their speech, and they teach it sometimes and explain it really well. But then when you peel back the layers of their experiences or lives and you get to know a person, you start to see incongruencies, because there are certain things that they're intending to, let's say, do for themselves, but they're out of alignment and they're not actually doing it, which makes them inauthentic in teaching it. Does that make sense?
No. So you're saying because they're out of alignment with
Yeah.
their thoughts, they're inauthentic.
So inauthentic compared to their greatest potential and their higher selves, right? So my mission.
You've got to somehow get alignment with your thoughts. Yeah. But your thoughts are you, aren't they?
No, your thoughts are not you. Your thoughts are your thoughts, depending on, and this is why I do one-on-one coaching, Brian, because this is such a deep, it's an intimate conversation with every single person I have this conversation with. And I know quite a bit when it comes to energy medicine and mindset and transformational coaching, but I am humble enough to say that I'm still in my progression and on my journey of learning how to simplify this entire conversation. I wasn't asked, right? I wasn't asked to share this perspective of mine with the world until very recently, and literally with the world. I recently had my first, what we call global conversation, a few weeks ago, and I presented what my understanding of holistic wealth is, because my, I guess, intention and what I desire to see everyone who wants this and desires this for themselves is for people to learn how to have healthy bank accounts and positive cash flow coming into their lives, multiple streams of income, a deep richness and connection in all of their relationships, and a very healthy relationship with themselves.
Well, it sounds like a fantastic objective. So what was this global conversation that you had?
Yeah, so I'm so excited. I might start to beam or glow, so forgive me, I can't hide it. So very recently, I've partnered with a company. So I own 3 businesses. I've partnered with a company that's allowing me to grow as an individual, as a speaker. And obviously, whenever a coach experiences growth, it makes them a better coach, right? Because as I go through the challenges, the adversity, the struggles that are involved with anyone's growth, you gain wisdom and you learn from certain experiences, right? That's just the way that this game works. So I was asked to speak to 13 different countries a few weeks ago for the first time, and going global, creating global affluence to really help people understand this conversation has been my dream since I was a little girl. It was just one of those voices in my head that was like, yeah, you're supposed to help change the world. And I'm like, oh, how the heck do I do that? So literally the past 20 years of my life have been me consciously, masterminding with myself as this woman on a mission to figure out the resources, the relationships, the connections, the masterminds, the business partners that were necessary in my life so that I could actualize that dream.
So you had this opportunity to speak with 13 different countries on some sort of a vehicle. What did you tell them?
Well, I told them a lot of what I'm sharing with you in our audience today, right? I got into the power of the mind, which I like to see. I'm learning how to filter a little bit, Brian, because I could literally spend the entire hour with you just talking about how our minds are designed, how they work. Because as unique as you are as a human being, as unique as I am, when you look at it objectively and you look at the functions of the conscious mind and then how to actually reprogram the subconscious mind, which is in fact responsible for all change, all learning, and all behavior. It's where we develop our habits. Well, a lot can change when people develop, like we said before, self-awareness. Self-awareness is really something that is shifting the consciousness, the vibration, the frequency of our world at large. Because if we do have as much power as it's now scientifically proven, let alone spiritually being taught around the world, to manifest our dreams, our desires, if abundance, which I believe is our birthright, I believe we live in an abundant universe. If all of these divine truths are real, then why isn't everyone developing themselves, developing their mind, and living a more healthy, happy, wealthy life, right? That's always the question that I've had.
And so when you're talking to this global group, you're talking about the healthy, wealthy, happy life. And the way to do that is by retraining their subconscious mind?
Yeah, the way to do that is by looking at your life. And again, this is why one-on-one coaching is magic, right? It's by looking at your life and looking at the holistic wheel of life for yourself. So for example, what's involved in this wheel of life? Relationships, your partnership, your career, your life purpose, your passions, right? Play and social work, community, personal growth, spiritual growth, whatever it is that is important to you. So all of your values, in a sense, you look at that wheel and then you get really real and really honest with yourself, right? And you ask yourself, okay,
you're happy in that wheel or you're unhappy in that wheel? What do you get honest with?
Yeah. So every area I just mentioned is sort of like it's like a piece of the pie that make up that circle, which is the wheel, right? And so you get honest by looking at every single component in that wheel and telling yourself, okay, I think I'm about 10% satisfied with this area, maybe 70% satisfied with this one. And by doing that, and I may have a visual if you want me to pull one up, because I'm personally a visual learner, so I create visuals for my clients. After looking at something like that, only then will you have the awareness of what you can actually focus on and create change in that particular area.
So this is part of your self-awareness. It's a check on you, but a check on numerous different areas about who you are and deciding whether you're happy with that. And then I presume you then go on to how you could change that. And part of it is changing habits in your subconscious mind.
Exactly. And the only issue is that if something is happening within your subconscious realm, it means that it's outside of your conscious awareness. And like I keep it simple and say, you don't know what you don't know. Neither do I, neither does anybody, right?
We're having I think, a fascinating chat tonight with Fasana Patel. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with her, and maybe we'll get her to show us that visual that she said would help us understand exactly what she's talking about. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We're chatting today with Fasana Patel, who is a transformational coach, and she's been talking about holistic wealth and holistic living and conscious women and conscious living. And it's been an interesting conversation. And she's, if I can do this right, she's going to share with us some information about what she's explaining. Is this what you're talking about?
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Brian, for sharing this. Guys, I'm a visual learner, so we just figured if you could see what we were talking about, it would help your understanding of this conversation. So when you look at this, I designed this for my clients. There are different parts of our lives that sometimes when we're not, quote unquote, conscious of, meaning if the importance of certain parts in life aren't a priority for us, let's say, based on just the way that we're currently programmed, right? The way that we're designed to run life. Well, you can't really make a change in something that you don't have the awareness of that needs a change to be made in. So here you see spirituality, health, career, family, partner, which, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, fun, recreation, community, physical environment, etc.
Friends and finances.
Yes. When you look at this, and you look at the one in the center as, let's say, 0% satisfaction or fulfillment. And then you go all the way up to 7. 7 is the number of completion. So when you go to 7, you can really map out what area in your life you want to focus and change. This is actually mine from a couple years ago.
Right.
And for people who have known me for years now, this may come as quite of a shock, because no one, Brian, would have known the financial struggle and the pain that I was going through in that area of my life. And yet, like we were chatting about on the break, everything in life is figure outable, right? Everything in life, you can learn anything in life. They're just skills. So that's what I love about us as human beings. We truly are programmable. We're a programmable species. And so the only thing that differentiates us from any other mammal on the planet is the ability that we have to choose and make decisions and have choice. right? So we were going to segue to the spirit part of the conversation. So I would love to do that at this point, if that's okay with you.
Let me just go back to the graphic that you had for a second. So what you do is you'll sit down with a client and walk through with a bunch of questions, I presume, the different parts of their life and understand where they're satisfied and where they're not satisfied, and then work out a bunch of things that they can work on to improve those areas?
Yes, essentially, yes. That's not typically how my first consultation call would go. I'm trained in some pretty fascinating modalities, let's say, and I'm trained in something called quantum linguistics. So I'm able to really get to know someone and more about their life than they might even know about themselves based on their language patterns and the way they choose to speak.
Okay. What's quantum linguistics?
So again, when you understand the subconscious mind, right, Brian, like here's the thing. A lot of people look at me and they're like, oh, everyone has a perception of everyone else, where it's natural for us. It's instinctual that we create judgments about other people as human beings, right? I do it, you do it, we all do it. It's all good. Now, when I learned years ago that the cure to my depression, because I've never taken medication for it, I've never been officially diagnosed with it, but of course, I'm the only one who truly knows how I feel. I'm with me 24/7, right? And so when I started to understand that the subconscious mind takes everything personally, the subconscious mind does not understand negatives. Like, for example, if I say, I am not cool, I am not smart, what my subconscious mind, but here's the thing, your subconscious mind too, are hearing is, I am happy, I am cool, or I am smart, because the not is negated in the language. So again, I'm not training on this, and quite frankly, I'm not qualified to train it, but I use it every day. And
so you're
for
saying
example,
the way people speak allows you to better understand exactly what their pros and cons are in their life.
Yeah, I mean, you could say pros and cons, but at the end of the day, it's like, if you think about it, right? If we're being programmed, if 90% of our mind, which is the subconscious mind, is being programmed because it can't differentiate between reality and fantasy, and you're sitting there during COVID-19 watching the news for 7 hours a day, there's a lot of energy and a lot of negativity that you're going to be programming yourself with. There's a reason, Brian, why 90% of our planet is living in fear right now, that the world is ending, or they're living in fear and they don't want to. I've been going for walks around the block, socially distancing, of course, being responsible, and people will be on the other side of the street, and I like to be a friendly creature, right? I'll smile, I'll wave, I'll say good morning, and some people will just look at me as if I have the plague, right? And it's just the disconnect within humanity, within our species. All I care about, like I said, the objective is always going to be, are you living your best life? And are you showing up and tapping into the infinite and unlimited potential that you have within you as a human being? This is our God-given birthright. So I fight for people who fight for themselves. And it's fun for me at this point because I love pouring wisdom and knowledge that I've spent decades and hundreds of thousands of dollars into myself to understand, and simply just helping others slightly shift certain perceptions that they have that will ultimately lead to massive transformation in their life.
So they can live their best life. Well, that sounds fantastic to me. Now, you were about to tell me how I can live more holistically in spirit. How do you do that?
Yeah. So, see, the world I live in today has been very intentionally manufactured by myself because I created it in my mind years ago. And so when I have conversations with most people, Brian, we have conversations that use a lot of the same linguistics that I'm using with you guys here today. The truth of the matter is that some people, they think that we are just these human beings having this spiritual awakening. See, when you understand that we're actually all spirit, oneness, unity, collaboration, these concepts are innate within us. We crave them. But because there's such a lack of trust within individuals, which then projects out into our relationships and our business.
Lack of trust within individuals or between individuals?
everything that happens in our lives is a direct reflection of what's happening within the universe, within yourself.
So if you don't trust yourself, then you don't trust others. But if you trust yourself, then you trust others?
Yeah. Because if you learn to trust yourself at a higher level, you'll learn to communicate yourself more effectively. You'll learn how to set healthy boundaries for yourself. You'll learn how to voice your truth and your opinion. You'll be okay being someone like crazy like myself, saying to someone when I first have an initial conversation, hey, listen, just so you know, my intention here is to look at how we can create a mutually beneficial relationship, a win-win-win. It has to be a win for you. It has to be a win for me. And it has to be a win for the world and our planet as a whole, right? This is an idea of the holistic conversation that I'm having on a daily basis. And what's so incredible is that since COVID-19 started, I started a new online business with this global platform, this organization that my partner and I have partnered with, so that we can help coaches, influencers, speakers get their message, get their brand. These are people and individuals who have done so much personal development within themselves. Brian, you're one of these people. You totally qualify for this as an expert and someone in his space because you have cultivated specialized knowledge. The world, people in China and India and Dubai and Europe and the Emirates and Africa, they're waiting for us to share our perspectives on how we've acquired success in our lives.
Okay, and I think that that's a very admirable objective, and I try to do that with some of my my interviews and some of my teaching and some of my speaking. There's no question. But let me come back to it. So I understand body. We've talked about that, and that was diet and fitness and self image and things like that. And then we talked about mind, and we talked about subconscious versus conscious, and training your subconscious and behaviors and habits and things like that. But spirit. Mm-hmm. How do you become more holistic with your spirit?
Brian, are we allowed to talk about God on this interview? Is that okay?
Of course. Yes.
Okay. When I was young, I was really disconnected from a higher power. I was actually really, really, really upset with God because I looked around at my life. I was missing my father. I didn't realize why he was so in and out of my life. And I got really angry. And I said, God, why? Why me? How many people have had that experience, right? Why me? Why am I going through this? Right? It was really painful. It had actually spiraled into my relationships as I got older. I was never dating anyone in high school or even university. I was the type of person to just really keep to myself and just be the observer rather than participate fully in life. I would kind of just be the quiet super nerd and just watch from the sidelines and observe people, right? And why spirit is so important is because whether you say God, the universe, spirit, source, father, whatever name any of us give to a higher power, it doesn't matter to me. I'm non-judgmental when it comes to this. What matters is that you identify that there is a higher power and a driving force that is bigger than ourselves. And I don't think we have time in this particular conversation to really get into this part of the conversation. But Brian, for the last 6 years, I've been working as diligently and persistently as I could have worked. And anybody who knows me knows that I don't do things with half a heart. I put my entire heart into every project. It's just the type of person I choose to be. And in the last 6 years, like I said, again, that same pattern from when I was a kid came up a few times. I would set a goal, I would strategize and put the plan of action in place, and then I would, take off guns a-blazing, and I would run towards that goal. But for whatever reason, sometimes things didn't necessarily work out for me the way that I had intended them to. And so in this process, I realized what divine orchestration really is. And a simple way of putting that is that God's plan for you is bigger than the plan that you have for yourself. And another funny one that people always say is that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, right? So this just means a lot to me because as a single young woman who does desire to have a healthy, thriving relationship, a partnership, this is like every, single woman's dream for the most part. Find a partner, build an empire, right? And it's not as easy as it sounds for some of us. And yet at the same time, what I've come to realize now, since we're on this topic and I'm just airing all my dirty laundry out here, you know, what I've come to realize at this point in my life and in my journey is that I am committed to evolving into the best version of myself. And what's so beautiful is that everything is energy and like attracts like. So what I can very honestly and very transparently say is that the quality of people, Brian, that I'm attracting into my life, personally and professionally, are at such a holistic, high vibrational level within their consciousness, their self-awareness, their confidence levels, their communication. I'm literally attracting mirrored versions of myself. So now it's like that saying, you know, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Yeah, that's very true.
We're chatting with Fasana Patel, who is a transformational life coach. And what was that line you called about God? You said that it was a wonderful line where you described who you thought God was. I loved it. But it's interesting that you think that we have to understand that there is this higher being in our lives that's guiding us. One of my favorite books is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and he talks about our destiny, and that we've got to find our destiny. And I think that's sort of similar to what you've described, and I love the idea of it. Anyway, we're going to take a break for messages, and we're going to come back with Fasana in just a minute. Stay with us.
Hi.
Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Fasana Patel, who is a transformational life coach, and we've been talking about improving our whole being. A holistic wealth is what Fasana describes it as. And we've talked about mind, we've talked about body, we've talked about spirit. And it's interesting, Fasana, one of the things that you've referred to, I'm not even sure if you realize it, but surprisingly often, and it was down at the bottom right-hand corner of your circle, was relationships. And so do you also counsel people on relationships, and why are relationships so important? And by that, do you mean connections with lots of friends, or do you mean romantic relationships?
Absolutely. Great question. I mean, every relationship, whether you're talking about the relationship with yourself, with your relationship to nature, the relationship to your mind, to your body. And of course, you know, we're creatures who crave connection. It's a human instinctual desire for us all to connect with one another. And because of the modern day world, Brian, the society that we live in, you have all of these amazing people who may be experiencing the same event, but based on what we know now about how the mind works and how human beings perceive the experiences that happen around them, you and I, for example, could leave this conversation and one person could think, wow, that was different. She's kind of spicy. Like, this is, wow, like, who knows? This is probably going to appeal to certain viewers that, you know, and then the other person might leave saying, that was all right. But we're having the same experience. So why this is important is it doesn't matter whether we're talking about platonic relationships, business partnerships, or romantic and intimate relationships. See, where I specialize is helping individuals really get clear on what it is that they desire, whether it's unconsciously, whether it's super consciously. My strength and my gift, if you will, is helping people understand their souls. It's helping them understand what you mentioned destiny a couple minutes ago. But the reality is that we create our destiny based on our conscious choices and our habits. We create our destiny based on what we choose to be committed to. So relationships take work. It doesn't matter, platonic, intimate, professional, romantic, it doesn't matter. Every relationship takes work. Because as individuals, we all have a unique and subjective life purpose. And only until we get clear, and again, just to be clear, I'm not speaking to everyone as if this applies to you. I'm speaking to the people that have an idea, that they resonate with this, and they're open and interested to receiving the information, to learning more. If you're happy with your life and everything is good according to you, God bless you. That's awesome. Right? It's just my personal belief that we have unlimited potential within us. And there's this brilliant quotation, I'm going to do my best to remember it now. which is that God's greatest gift to us is unlimited potential. Our greatest gift to God is using as much of that potential as we can in this lifetime.
Fasana Patel, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If people want to contact you for your coaching or some of your podcasts, how do they do that?
Yeah, so I'm going through some incredible rebrands right now. The easiest way to find me is to reach out via social media. Brian, I'm a millennial. Don't judge me. If you want to reach out to me, contact me on Facebook Messenger or simply connect on Instagram. And I look forward to it. I look forward to meeting everyone who resonated with our conversation today.
Fasana Patel, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take one last break and I'm going to come back with some concluding comments. Stay with us. Well, thanks for joining us tonight on the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. We've had, I think, an interesting conversation with Fasana Patel, a life transformational life coach. She was talking about mind, body, spirit, holistically living a better life. And I really resonate with a bunch of the things she said. As some of you know, I've been doing a doctorate in business and I've been studying a lot of similar kind of concepts. One of the gentlemen that I really liked was a guy by the name of Richard Boyazzi, who wrote a book called Emotional Intelligence. And he had something in it he called the theory of intentional change. And it was studied with a lot of different business people through a clinical trial. And it's interesting, some of the things are very similar to what Fasana talked about. One was that you had to have an intention. If you didn't have an intention, that you actually weren't positively going to do something, nothing worked. So the people that just sat back with a secret and said, I want something, wouldn't change. And that sort of is what Fasana was saying, the secret behind the secret is. The second thing is self-assessment was critical. And the vast majority of people didn't sit down and really figure out what they were all about. So, she talked about self-awareness. And then the third was that it's cyclical. It's not a one-time thing. You got to implement your vision and your self-assessment, and you got to try to work on things. And if they don't work out, you got to try to figure out what went wrong, and you got to continuously restudy your strengths and weaknesses. And so I thought that theory of intentional change was very helpful. The other thing that I wanted to refer to is a piece of work that I did understanding mental health. And a psychiatrist from the UK was talking about how people can get out of mental health issues and said the key to success was falling in love with the future vision of yourself. Falling in love with the future vision of yourself. I thought that was just spectacular. And then I think the last thing I want to talk about is this idea of destiny. And Paulo Coelho in the book, The Alchemist. And it's interesting. The destiny wasn't a God-given thing that was going to be there for sure. He had to make choices. And sometimes he had to take a look at a bunch of rocks and decide which one was the choice he was going to make. And he made some wrong choices at times. And so destiny is something that you create for yourself based on the choices you make in life. God may have been giving you certain great traits, great potential, but it's up to you to make the best of it. And I think Fasana said that as well. Anyway, that's a couple of my concluding comments. Thank you, Fasana, for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. This was such a pleasure, Brian. Thank you so much. And everyone, have a great day.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.